All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hydroflight enthusiasts of all ages, this is Blaine Jeffrey with Hero Magazine, and you're watching the first episode of the Hydroflight Show, and really excited to be here with you, and very excited to be hosting with Andrew.
Andrew Salvador, yeah. I'm from Team Camfly and Cabo Flyboard in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and we also have Mike Prince with us.
Thank you, Andrew. Mike Prince from Team Canfly as well. And of course, I would like to introduce our guests that we have today. We have Gretchen Vance, of course, very well known in the industry for her work with the team over at Aquafly, and as co-organizer of
watching the first episode of the Hydroflight Show, and really excited to be here with you, and very excited to be hosting with Andrew.
Andrew Salvador, yeah. I'm from Team Camfly and Cabo Flyboard in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and we also have Mike Prince with us.
Thank you, Andrew. Mike Prince from Team Canfly as well. And of course, I would like
Is everybody hearing this thing twice?
Yeah. It's very well known in the industry. Wait till it catches up. As co-organizer.
There we go.
Okay.
Guy killing it?
There we
That's
go.
the best way to start a show. Give it to them 5 times so they don't miss a thing. Okay.
That's right, yeah.
To all 3 viewers out there, I apologize for the feedback loop there. We'll start again with.
Right. You have it on, Bobby?
Yeah. All good?
Okay, guys. So we'd like to welcome our guests that we have today. Of course, Gretchen Vance. Gretchen, very well known for her work in the industry, and with her team at Aquafly, and of course co-organizer of the recent 2015 North American Championships. Welcome, Ms. Vance.
Thank you.
And of course we have Callon Burns. Cal's a professional hydroflight athlete, having competed in 2014 North American Flyboard Championship, coming in 3rd place. Pretty strong, Cal, showing up. 2014 Dubai Flyboard World Cup 12th place, and 2015 North Americans 11th place. Cal's passion for our sports both on and off the water is pretty incredible, and first-hand experience with a number of the top products on the market today. Cal, you the bomb, man. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
And of course, last but not least, Jason Burns, head judge at the recent 2015 North American Championships. Jason's been involved in the competitive jet ski world for most of his life. His entire family loves to fly and has a great passion and vision for our sports. Jason, thanks for joining us. Awesome,
okay,
guys. Well, without further ado.
Yeah, let's get started.
We've brought everybody together here. Sorry, Andrew.
That's all right, Blaine. Yeah, so a big thank you again to all of our guests, and thank you to all of the viewers that we have. What is that, 3 right now?
I think so. Probably Bobby and the 2 kids.
That's awesome. That's good. You got to start somewhere. That's perfect. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're going to be talking about the competitive side of our sport. For those of you that are unfamiliar with hydroflight sports, the competitions to date have been pro flyboarding events where athletes perform freestyle tricks and are awarded points by a panel of judges. So to start off, we're just going to sort of get you guys to share your personal experience with the sport of your choice and what you guys follow in the hydroflight world, and just sort of comment to that and the nature of the current competitions that we've had to date. So let's start off with you, Cal. Please go ahead.
Based off my experience from first getting involved with flyboard, watching flyboard as first a spectator and then actually getting into it as a competitor maybe a year later afterwards, I'd first say that it's come quite a way. It's evolved in a short span of time. I mean, tricks have become incredibly technical. Pilots have gotten a lot better. They've gotten a lot more structure. But that's not to say that it doesn't have room for improvement. But overall, I'm impressed with the general growth in the sport. I mean, when you think of the amount of time that it's been around in like 3 to 4 short years, and you think of where we are, it lets you have some confidence in that you have something really good that you're working with. Be it you have people in a position that's willing to continue to push it. So that's my take on it. As a competitor, I love it. I mean, I love the competitive nature with all the top pilots. I still think that there's a lot of things that could still be worked out. I mean, you can't expect too much in such a short space of time. I mean, you have a really good platform, but I think it's small little things that could be worked out that could make it a slight bit neater package, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
for sure. Yeah, and I
That's
mean,
what we're talking about here, right?
What's that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all very new right now. What about Callon? How did you start to get into it? How did you get into the sport yourself?
Being from Bermuda, I initially started in Coconut Rockets, a local dealership on the island, owned by Michael Swan. He had recruited me as kind of a last member in the team and also the youngest at the time. When he showed me a video on YouTube, it was actually a pretty old video. I think it was like the first instructional video that's actually out on YouTube presently. I saw that, and initially it was going to be like a summer gig. So I was like, when I saw the video and seeing these guys flying, I was like, no brainer. I was like, yeah, I'm in. So I approached my first season just learning, really, being an instructor, learning the equipment, and then getting the benefits of a lot of flight time being within a rental operation. I'd assume a lot of the better guys have that luxury, you know, having access to equipment and time on a daily basis. And I think that helped me out quite a bit. Not to mention that Mike was very supportive of me and where I wanted to go. I had mentioned from jump once I had even realized that freestyle competitions were a thing, that's where I wanted to go. So that was kind of set in stone from early outs. But so he gave me tons of time to play around with the board and just kind of figure it out. It wasn't until last year, June, when things really got real. You know, I ran into a competition, not quite sure of how things were going to turn out. Everyone was so massive to me, so, you know, I just wanted to just stick a good, you know, placement and somewhat get some respect from everyone else that's around me, or as my peers, or as my opponents, or however you want to put it. You know, I ended up getting a very good result, which ended up helping me out quite a bit personally within the sport, you know, and since that point I've been nonstop. You know, I've been banging practice, trying to be involved in as many competitions as possible. Anywhere there's an event or if it's an opportunity, I'm just trying to be there. So I think that's what's been helping me, and I'm just fortunate to have a really good team around me. That's what's helped me out a lot. You know, having people that can that put some faith into me and believe in what I can do for them, and vice versa. So that's kind of where it came to till now, really.
Yeah, for sure, Cal. And you were awesome at that first North American Championship. That was really great. Hey, so Gretchen, the same question for you. Sort of, where did you start in this whole industry? How did you get into it? And what do you think of the status of, you know, the tournaments we've had? And again, thank you for putting on the 2015 North American Championship that we had out of Shreveport. That was great.
So I got involved in the flyboard industry via marital osmosis. Bobby became the distributor for flyboard here in Texas and some other states in the southern region. And then, you know, I felt that Frankie had, although we did not attend the 2013 World Cup, we knew it existed at the time. We were in absolutely no position. We had just gotten into the business. We were in no position to attend nor have a team of such. But I felt that it was a really interesting marketing strategy to create a competition so that people would buy your board, so that you would be proficient on the board. And I still feel that that was a really important thing that he did. And so one day I was sitting down talking with Bobby. Jake and Joe Arell had come to us wanting to buy a board, and Jake was almost immediately proficient on it. And I said, you know what, this he's young. He was just turned 14 at the time, just barely 13 years old, you know, just barely 14 years old, coming off his 13th year. And I said, I feel like we could train these boys to create, you know, a team. And then met Damon, and of course Hunter joined us last year, and I think that's, you know, fairly well known, those three gentlemen. So for us, it's just developing a team that we can use almost as advertising, marketing people, you know, to showcase the board in its absolute best light possible. And I think they do a pretty good job at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. How about you, Jason? Where did you start out in this whole thing, and what do you think about the tournaments you've been involved in, and where's that?
Well, I started out, saw it online, and had to have it like a lot of people. And the jet ski was fun. It started to, for a while, lose its luster. But this, the flyboard fountain of youth for me. Ever since I've gotten it, I spend 4 or 5 days a week, you know, in the summer, training, practicing, having fun. So I'd have to say it definitely takes my life, and I enjoy it very much. So.
Good. We're having just a little bit of an issue with your audio there, Jason.
Oh.
Maybe, yeah, maybe if you come a little bit closer to the screen, it might help. It's sort of getting a bit crackly. Go ahead, keep going, sorry.
Can you hear me better now?
A little better.
Yeah, a little better.
Okay. I don't know what to say. I tried.
That sounds like a good, fun start to flyboarding, sort of like a lot of us started just getting in and had some friends that wanted to do it with us, and just had some fun trying it out and seeing what we could do. And you know, it's pretty amazing where it has come in just the last couple of years, like Callon was saying. So what about the tournaments and that, Jason? What do you think of how you've been involved in?
Can you hear me good?
Yep.
We can hear you, buddy. We'll do our best.
So right away when we got the flyboard, of course, we put it to use with our freestyle competitions for the jet skis. And we kept stealing the show, obviously. And so, and then from there, too, we wanted to develop our own freestyle competition tour, the Midwest Championship. And that's actually how I got to meet a lot of you guys, like Gretchen and stuff. And I needed a lot of help with that early on. But, you know, so yeah, freestyling has always been the thing. And this sport, well, if you do, you know, over the water, I don't think it's like any other, especially when you start to draw different comparisons. I also did mobile skiing freestyle, and of course, a lot of you pay attention to things like skateboarding, BMX, snowboarding. But there's, when you look at some of these rules, like the X Games skateboard rules or the BMX, you know, rules for the X Games, you'll see that they have usually 3 different categories. You'll have your park, your vert ramp, and your big air, and they separate them. We really can't. But I think when you talk about the roots of flyboarding, you know, it hasn't been around for very long, you're talking about height, too. And so it's more like big air competition. You know, run around full throttle, make sure you get proper space for that. But, so, yeah, I got a lot of recommendations definitely as we move forward in the future. With technology, too, you know, you can even measure things that's the skis producing or the fly is producing. It's a change coming.
So is anybody else getting a little more than I am, or am I the only, are we getting the same experience there in terms of the audio?
Kind of in and out.
It's a big factor,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Jason, but we're missing sort of every third, fourth word. It's kind of going in and out. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to be able to do. That might be actually a connectivity thing, a bandwidth, and versus just the microphone seems to be able to you know, pick it up when it has a clear signal, but it seems to be fading in and out. So, but I hear what you're saying. You were talking about the relationship between skate and snowboard, and some of the other disciplines and how they break them up, and that's one of the things we can just run right with that thought. In that, I was going to ask. We all have been a part of the competitions. They're fairly well known in terms of what's gone on so far with the last 4 major events. So I think people out there have a bit of a sense of what a professional flyboard competition is going to have right now in its current state. But what I'd like to ask is sort of, what are some of the things, because a lot of the conversations I have behind the scenes are about what could we do different? What could we, Cal, we just had a conversation about how, you know, how we might be able to have different types of events. You know, you have, I was saying something about tennis, right? You've got the clay court, you've got the grass, you've got the hard court. It's still tennis, but guys can do, guys perform a little bit different on different surfaces. So from a pro flyboarding perspective, you know what X Dubai is going to basically be like. But if you had another complementary event, you might be able to do a different format. You were talking about these different battle rounds and things like that. So I'd like to come back to asking each of you, if you had no barriers, no logistical barriers, no execution barriers, no monetary barriers, and you could create an event or a format that you think would sort of highlight the best that Hydroflight has to offer right now, what would that look like, and why would you do it that way? And maybe I'll just jump right back to Gretchen on that, since you've had experience, obviously, with the last event and all the pros and cons that go with trying to put that on.
Yeah, so I'm not so sure that I would organize that based on the fact that I bring a team to the competition. I think that is something that I definitely learned in this event. So, but if I was consulting on an event like that, if we were encompassing all Hydroflight products, if we were having an open forum event, I think what you have to separate those into different segments. You have to separate it into a jetpack. You have to separate it into a foot-based board event, and then a ride-on type apparatus, whether it's the fly bike or the Jetivator or whatever's going on in that aspect. It has to be three. You have to do three different divisions. It's not cross-competitive. You can't put a Jetivator up against a flyboard. You just can't. You can't put a jetpack up against a. I don't even want to. If we call it something else other than a flyboard, just for the sake of open forum competition. Jet blade, dolphin board, flyboard, any type of boot to binding system. You know, for me, I think what would, you know, Jason had a really good point about dividing it into a couple different segments. Speed and, you know, maybe you do a qualifying round so you get it down to 32, and then you do 2 rounds in that round where you do speed and agility and then big air. Maybe each of those are 2 minutes. So I mean, who's the better flyer? The flyer that goes up 30 feet and does a triple and lands it at 10, or is that the flyer that can throw 15 triples in 2 minutes? It just depends on what's your style. Like, what do you like? So you can separate those by doing things like that, by doing big air versus speed and agility, and maybe you want to have something else in there. But I think that for me, I personally like the point system where you go out and you get a score. I feel like battle rounds, they're just not my thing. They're exciting, and I think from a spectator standpoint, it's cool. You know, Spider-Man versus Superman. You know, who does the better event? But as a coach, as training a team of what I think a lot of people would say are some of the top Hydroflight athletes in the world, it's very hard when you. You know, I would love to see my team stand 1, 2, 3 on top of a podium, but if they start eliminating each other, you can't have that. And so, are you having? And even if it's not on your team, even if it's not your team, do you have top athletes eliminating each other prior to getting into the meat and potatoes of the group the way that the current World Cup is now? It bothers me a little bit. I don't. If Callon goes in, Damon goes in, Jake goes in. Rush Bragg goes in, and all of a sudden Callon doesn't have a great round, but it was decent. He qualifies, maybe he sits 29, he sits 30, he hits 31, and all of a sudden he might be flying against Rush Bragg, who had the ride of his life, sitting at 2 or 3, and you've got 2 great athletes that are going to eliminate each other, and when they should both be in the top 16, and it shouldn't be that way. And so that is the issue I have with battle rounds and the way that they qualify into that situation.
Yeah, and we got a lot. I mean, I took a lot of feedback from Dubai, and I know some of you are more familiar with this story, but you know, I sat there and I was an ear to everybody's concerns as the event was going on. After the event, I tried to take a bunch of feedback in, and one of the things that was the easiest to see was the dislike for that exact scenario, which was the battle rounds, because it did mean that guys were butting heads way too early, knocking each other out. We weren't seeing the best flyers move on. We weren't seeing the best possible competition. And as you're trying to win over the public, you want your best guys continuing to move on and getting more time on that board and more time on the water, because they're the ones who can perform at the highest level. So I think it was pretty clear that the battle rounds didn't work or weren't fan-friendly and weren't athlete-friendly. And I think what's happened is we've had the North American Championship. We've had a little bit of feedback based on the base point scoring, the just what the end result was from not being able to reward sort of going big and being innovative and creative as much as we wanted to, and having more of it be about the number of tricks. That feedback goes back to Zapata Racing, and Frankie says, well, I don't know. They're it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's kind of like, okay, that didn't work. See, I told you, let's go back to battle rounds. Well, that's, there was more people feeling negative about the battle rounds than I had heard feeling about the point system needing some tweaking. So it'd be nice if we had an opportunity to, again, go back and probably explain. I know Frankie wants to put all of this information out in September at some point about what Dubai is going to look like. And to me, I have my own personal batch of questions here, and we could just jump around now. I was going to go in some kind of order, but it just makes me think. You've got so many questions that are going to come up with the Pro Series board, first of all, because in of itself being released to the public creates the question of how do you have different divisions just because guys can do crazy things with independent feet versus not. Guys will have access to the independent feet, and other guys will not. So some guys are flying either locked boards, Pro Series, Legends, and they're all in the same pro category, and they're all going up against 10 or 15 guys that have had a lot of time with independent feet and can do all these new moves. And it's a judged trick, it's a freestyle judged sport. And now you've got this huge separation in abilities based on the product. So that creates a whole confusing thing in my mind a little bit. And then on top of that, you have maybe this backtrack to the format that happened last year, which people in the end didn't actually like. So just throwing it out there, whoever wants to chime in, I guess, on that thought.
So I think that, okay, so Frankie is really passionate about the battle rounds, but I don't think you have to eliminate battle altogether. I think you could take point system up until you get to the top 4. With those top 4 athletes, however you end up in the top 4, whether it be kind of how we did at North American, we went 32 to 16, we took top scores, filtered them, top 8 moved on, filtered those, top 4 moved on. So when you get to the top 4, you know who that top 4 is, but then you go back and you take all of their cumulative scores, you add it all up, you create a big number, and then you re-rank them 1 through 4. Let them battle 1, 4, 2, 3, and then let 1 and 2 go after each other, and let 3 and 4 go after each other for third. And that way you still, by that time, by doing points that way, you should have the top 4 hydro athletes that are willing to fly a flyboard at your disposal right there. And then I think battling them, that's something that I could live with. To address your issue in regard to the board, it's very interesting because I have 3 boys that all fly now on the 2015 board, and they all have it set differently. Hunter flies wide open, both feet flying. Jake flies with only 1 foot loose on a 2-pin setting. Damon flies, I believe, 1 foot 2-pinned, 1 foot 1-pinned. So it's not super loosey-goosey, but it's not tight either. So as far as a 2015 board versus 2014 board, there are different things, and I think they just have to be scored different. Obviously, when you're on the 15 board, you can get those spins like this, but it's very difficult to do a 180 on that board. It's very hard. And so it makes it more problematic. But I don't think that you can, especially if you go to open format, you can't, I feel that you choose to penalize yourself as a flyer if you come with the 2014 board. You are putting that restriction on yourself, not the competition. So you have to just say, board with bindings is in 1 classification. The only board out there that is not split foot is the 2014 board. If you make the conscious decision as a flyer to do that board, then you created the penalty for yourself. It wasn't a competition penalty. It's just a thought.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, that sort of, when you get to this level in the sport, you should be seriously taking into account that you need the good gear. If you want to compete professionally and you want to be the best, you need the best stuff out there to try to get to it, right? A lot of people may not have access to that right now, possibly for supply too and that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely see what you mean there. One little question I had, I was really curious what you guys think about this, is with the independent feed of the Pro Series board, and being able to do 360s, 720s, those sorts of things almost effortlessly just by moving one foot toe down and the other one toe up. Do you guys think that that trick should be scored the same as the way that like traditional 360s and spins were done before?
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Not it.
No, it can't be. It's too. Yeah, it's too. It's totally.
If I can,
I haven't tried it yet, but
if I can do it, you can't score it. That's how you judge that.
I like that.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
That's
Cal.
a very good question, though, because that's going to be a quandary, because you could sit there and spin for 2 minutes straight. We're going to have to cap it, like maybe 1080 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's got to be some control. I think Cal had something to say about the last topic
Yeah.
there. Jump in, Cal.
I wanted to get touch on something before getting too far ahead and kind of losing the plot. But touching on like the scoring system and stuff, and without totally piggybacking on what Gretchen said, because she said a lot of things that I probably would have said already. One thing that I took out of NAFBC that I did like was the qualifying runs. Now I'll explain my reason being. I feel like as a professional, I'm not calling anybody out, or even including myself. I feel that you should come prepared to a competition like this. If this is a competition, you're professional. So in that sense, this is your job to come prepared. So what I saw was a lot of guys that came unprepared, you know, and it showed on the scores whether or not they followed their own format or they just didn't ever read the rules and regulations that were set in front of them. Now, for me, a qualification run should probably be the stiffest run for that reason. That separates like the men from the boys, if you will, you know? So what you'll find is the better guys will go out there and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and go do that because they have practiced. They've put themselves in a position to be able to do so, you know? And that says a lot about your technical ability. For me, the difference between freestyle and then having criteria is that freestyle, you can be awesome. A lot of people can be awesome. But I feel like in a lot of ways, you can wing it. Some people get away with stuff in a freestyle because it's no rules to it. You can kind of go with however you feel, you know what I mean? But when you have now rules and regulations, something that says you have to abide by this, that shows whether or not you have the discipline to be able to execute that.
But Damon almost didn't qualify. How fair would have that been?
But hey, I can't speak for Damon. I know Damon's an awesome fly, but maybe Damon got a rush of blood. Maybe Damon was
just a little bit. But again, you want to know what a logistical nightmare? Ask Gretchen. Scoring this was too much because we had to, without any error, make sure that everybody did everything in exact order. And I'll tell you what, nobody did it perfect. But it was I didn't.
That's not true. I think some people did execute their cards perfectly, and I'll answer the question about Damon. You know, as an athlete that I coach, that was a disappointment for me in the fact I wasn't disappointed in him as an athlete, but I was disappointed that what did I do wrong as his coach that would keep him from doing well in that scenario. I had 3 athletes there, 2 executed their 5-point cards perfectly, but I also had a little bit more time with them from the standpoint of logistically where people were in the spring. But I think that it goes, Callon is 100% correct. When you do a qualifying round like that on a 5-trick card, whether you do a 5-trick card or you say we're going to do a compulsory round, and in that compulsory round we say that you have to do a 1080 to double, you have to do a Superman to backflip, whatever you decide to create it. If you want it to be a true compulsory round so that you're judging apples to apples between flyers, then you are going to showcase your most technical flyers. And I'm sorry, if you have a flyer that is quote unquote one of the best in the world and they bunk that up, it's a shame on them. It's not, it is lack of preparation, and nobody owes them that push through just because of who they were a year ago. But the question is, who were they on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th? That's what we have to answer.
I agree.
I don't like that. It takes away from the meaning of true freestyle. Now that's something where you're requiring of somebody. What if there's somebody who is great but doesn't feel comfortable with one particular part? So then they don't qualify?
As a pro,
every Olympic sport is based off of that criteria. Gymnastics, you have compulsory. Ice skating, you have compulsory. You have compulsory on even on the half pipe, they have compulsory. It's just the way. The only place that I know that doesn't have it is jet skiing, but it doesn't mean that that's what makes it right. The fact is that if you truly want to be crowned as the best hydroflight athlete, then you should know every trick there is out there. You shouldn't have a weakness.
The infinity flip, then.
Yes, I mean, right now it's to a point where so many guys are very close in skill right now that I feel like it's one and two things that make the difference. Sharpness for one, how many times you land your move versus that guy that may have missed one or two, and being able to do the more flexible moves. You have guys that can do stand-up moves, and then you have a few guys that can do the stand-up moves and a little bit of them extra moves, like an infinity flip. But that's where you separate it, though. You can't.
That's real great, as Gretchen would say.
But you can't say that, okay, he can't do that move, so don't judge him against that because he can't do that move. That's not your fault. You know what I mean? As a rider, all of us riders should be doing our homework and trying to come with our best tools equipped.
Best show, your best artwork, your best freestyle. That's just my opinion.
And you're missing what I'm saying is that in a qualifying run, that freestyle is not applicable right now. We're talking about basically what Gretchen was saying was that we're trying to lay out certain criteria that you can show as a pro, you can execute given on command.
Okay, then that's true. Then do it in the format where you have to, some point in time in your routine, like skating, perform these tricks. But again, link points, in my opinion, there should be no bonuses for linking tricks anymore. And to have an order like this where you have 5 in a row, I'd say that's not really feasible for a lot of reasons. But say if you wanted to say that it's in a qualifying routine, you had to perform X, X, and X within that routine, that could be something that would still flow to freestyle. But
well, I have a quick question before we go on. Okay,
yeah,
if that be the argument, then my question is, now that we're at this level, how do you separate what a pro is versus the average individual?
I think we're at the point now where in any competition we have to have 2 divisions. We have to have a pro-am division and we have to have a pro division. If you can't meet the compulsory requirements, which you will have to execute in the first round, then you need to be in the amateur category. And if you can't, and you keep them there, and that allows younger and I don't think you put an age on that, because it's unfair to take a flyer like a hunter and say, oh, well, because you're only 16, you have to fly in the amateur category. I don't think you put an age on it. I think it's a skill level requirement. So we take 5, what I consider to be, I think there's no pro out there who should not be competing at the World Cup that can't do a 1080 double, that can't do a Superman to backflip, that can't, probably by the time we get to the World Cup, if you can't land a triple, you're not going to be in the top 16, so you should probably consider moving on. There's other skills there that need to be compulsory that you should have, and if you don't have those, then maybe you need to be in a different division. And I think that is where the key to the growth of the sport is to create a division where amateurs feel that they can develop and grow their talents, and they're not stuck just, who wants to go all the way to Dubai to be eliminated in the first 5 minutes of the first day? So allow them to be in an amateur situation.
Yeah. You're echoing actually what Jordan Wayment preached to me at the North American Championship, because he's coming out of wakeboarding. And he wakeboards in the outlaw division, which is the top division for Utah or whatever. And he'll he can chime in here too and let me know. But he had different divisions and different levels, and definitely he was encouraging us to look at the option of bringing people into these various pro-am, so that you at a certain level could feel that maybe I can win this thing. Because if you're kind of getting there and you're getting kind of good and you're thinking maybe I will come to this competition, and you're going to just be lumped right in with Damon Rippey, lumped right in with Callon Burns. I mean, you're right away. You're like, this is just an unwinnable situation for me, and I'm just going there to hang with friends and experience the weekend or whatever, the 3 days. But I have no opportunity.
You got to have an amateur program as well. Amateur, expert, and pro would be ideal, and then of course 2-3 divisions for women. But then it comes down to money and time and everything else. But that's the way it should be.
Realistically, my honest opinion, and I have nothing against, like, let's say, for instance, the veterans division. But right now, we're looking at the growth of the sport. The growth, in a lot of ways, means future. You know, going ahead. Right now, we have a pro division that's being worked on, and like you guys said, entertaining an amateur division will probably be the next best thing rather than the other because of the fact of where we're trying to go with it. You allow 14 and 15-year-olds to find their feet without having to be thrown in the deep end, you know, and kind of be disheartened or finding like what you guys have said.
Sure. One of the other things that happened in Dubai, and I'll just say this from a fan perspective, is that if I'm walking by the water and you have no program to hand me, no scoreboard for me to reference, nothing but a very hard to understand MC yelling over the microphone, and I don't know what you're talking about, then when I look out on that water, whoever is out there flying, I'm saying that's pro flyboarding, and that's where they're at.
Right.
So when I look out there and I see a guy who's been put into that pro division or been put into that event who can barely spin around and do a dolphin dive and come out of the water without looking like he's drowned, I think that that's where you guys are at. Okay? And then I walk away, and I don't see Cal come up next, and I don't see Damon come up next, or whoever come up next, and actually do what the board can do and put on the show that the pros can put on. I walk away going, yeah, I saw pro flyboarding the other day. Yeah, it was all right. The guy fell in the water, and they had to stop the jet ski and pull him out. Like that can happen because we have right now a situation where we want 70 competitors, 10 of which are put in because Dubai gets to put in, I think, again, it might be the same thing as last year, gets to put in guys for hosting. We have no idea what their qualification or what their skill level is. So they're going to come out there and putz around probably. And we have some guys that fall in the range of the next 30 or so are that pro-am level. And then you've got 25 to 30 guys that are legitimately flying at a professional level where we would be willing to take all of them and put them on national television if we had one shot to say, hey, go tell the world that your sport of pro flyboarding is ready to go and is mature. Who do you want to fly out there? We'd have probably 20, 25 guys, 30 guys max that we would be comfortable saying, there's our group, there's our guys. As far as I know, you know, and I see videos all the time now coming in from other countries of guys that I don't recognize, and they're flying it, you know, they're doing some good stuff. But again, can you put it all together, and has it been edited and all that other stuff? But how do we make sure that, you know, if the problem that I have right now with this whole thing is that we have all eggs in one basket, Dubai Flyboard World Cup coming up in December, and that's it. That's the schedule. So when you go over there, it all has to be satisfied with this one event. Now, this brings me back to Cal and I having a discussion about wouldn't it be cool if you had other events and you had other formats. So you were talking about these battle rounds where you send 2 flyers out at the same time. You got one guy on the right side in the pen, whatever. You got one guy on the left side, and they're out there at the same time. And then they do battle trick against each other. And from a crowd perspective, you cheer on the guy who one-ups the other guy. Somebody's judging it, but it's a different format. But it's still the same type of tricks. You're just executing them in a different fashion. And maybe that is something that you could get excited about because Dubai is one way, then this other event in Florida is this battle way. Then you go over to Michigan, and Jason's got this, you know, this other format, which is really exciting. And and everybody knows what the formats are and can train for them, and knows. That's the other thing about this whole argument about the qualifying rounds and about whether you need a compulsory round. That's fine, and we're getting to the point where that can work if all of the tricks that are going to be the compulsory tricks are well known, like September 1st here, or you know what I mean, like that you got 3 months to train. That infinity flip, some guy comes up with Cooper comes up with an infinity flip, and 2 weeks later you throw it in as a compulsory trick, and some people haven't even heard of it yet. That's the problem that we have is about time frames and about training schedules and about preparation.
I was gonna say something about that not too much earlier, but I felt one of our biggest problems as a sport is that we have to stay consistent. Now, if we build a platform, we have to stay consistent to that platform at least for a period of time, whereas everybody is kind of got a grasp of it. Because what I find right now is that the good guys can adapt really fast because they've got some experience, but for the vast majority, we have one thing for this year and then it changes. Second, it changes the whole new ball game, and so you don't really find any continuity. You know, it's kind of here then there, and that's where it becomes difficult. You know, for people to kind of adjust. You know, And basically, like what you were saying about the competitions, you know, we play around with ideas. I mean, because we like to have fun. And like I said, you look at different good guys, and you realize that they have so many different styles, like contrasting styles. You know, some guys are really good being fast and technical and sharp, and then you have guys that go big and, you know, want to kind of like surprise you and all that. You can make separate competitions or divisions, or, you know, whereas you can kind of play around with those styles, so people can either decide to, hey, I want to go in this because this is stylistically up my alley, or I want to go outside my comfort zone and try the best, the better in that one and stuff like that. Like you said about the battle runs, you know, Dubai has its own format. I think it would be pretty cool to have a format whereas it's more based on that little bit of time that you have to make your trick, and then let the people judge who came up big and who didn't. You know what I mean? That's not to say that has to be the main, but that's just another option, you know. So
the other parts of the equation. Oh, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we walk a fine line too when we keep bringing in stuff like entertainment. You know what I mean? Obviously we've always had the points for showmanship and stuff like that. And yeah, to a degree, it's cool. And I get, you know, when we talk about battle rounds would be neat for the crowd to see. I agree. But if we look at other sports and how other sports have evolved, it's really about the tricks just getting bigger and better, and that's what brings in the crowds. I understand, you know, sure, we all want sponsorship. We all really want to find those, you know, the proper viewers, but I don't know if that's the way to do it, and that's what's really going to show who the top flyers are. I really think it's that we got to keep allowing the tricks to evolve, and that, you know, let people get faster, let people get stronger, and that's really how it's going to happen, in my own opinion.
Yeah, we kind of have to get away from being so that little wow factor, like, you know what I mean? If you focus on just that one move, then you kind of miss everything else that goes on, you know? And because in a lot of ways, I feel like we're at a point now where guys are so good that, like I said before, that missing a trick should be probably the biggest thing, you know, not making your tricks. So that means guys have to be able to combo the hell out of things and tie things together with efficiency, but also looking at how neat it was. You know, my biggest pet peeve with a lot of things right now is the fact that, you know, you can have this individual throw a double tight and, you know, land 5 feet up, and then have another one that, you know, barely make it. Maybe it was kind of off balanced and all that, but because he do 2 loops, it's a double. And I feel like we have to find some consistency with scoring people. I can't give somebody a point on a backflip just for doing a backflip when this guy went and nailed a backflip, if you get my drift.
Yeah, Callon, I do agree with you that, you know, it could sort of seem like, yeah, if you aren't penalized as much for the tricks that you do mess up, then yeah, you know, you can have somebody that just has a lot of energy that goes out there and just keeps trying more and more and more and more and more, and they may actually get a lot of points. But I think, you know, I agree with you that it should be about really proper execution too, and there should be some big points deducted for missing tricks. You know, it's just part of a clean performance, of a professional performance.
Yeah, what are we professionals for?
You said something important. You said big points deducted, but there you can't really allow that the way it was set up. Something that I've thought a lot about is the number and points too. Like just a off the head quick example. We talk about how, you know, there is a balance too, talking about staying low, being quick versus going up high. If you can't punish a guy for going up high, so you give him a height multiplier. But say an example of a Superman, 15 down low, 30 up high, 60 for an epic big one like we saw on Flyboard Family the other day. Then you got like your flips, like a single flip would be like 30, a double like 75, a triple like 130, and a quadruple like 195. You start thinking about that. Now if he doesn't make it, he doesn't get it. But the risk-reward benefit is there in case he does pull it off. But in Louisiana, for example, if you paused in between your double and you did 2 singles, you got 12 points. If you did it really good and clean, you got even more. You did a double, you got 13 points. If you didn't do it clean, you got less than if you did 2 single flips. So you've got to make the risk-reward there. You know, again, no more link bonuses, and then you say you give a +10 plus minus. No more impression judges either. There should be 5 judges, all with equal say. You throw out the highest and lowest. You know, I had a lot of other stuff written down, but I don't even know if you guys can hear me. So.
But we can, yeah.
That's pretty good now.
That was good.
Okay. The video replay was really nice. It was actually, you couldn't have done the qualifying system the way it was without it. But in the final 4 and the final 8, I think it was nice. I think having a replay judge all by itself too would be kind of a good idea too, especially in the later rounds. Oh, and one last thing, my suggestion was with freestyle too. I wanted to make sure that that last horn, I wanted every, you know, and I made the suggestion, but I wanted it to be at least 20 seconds because most every freestyler ran out of time setting up for that last big trick. And in the beginning too, originally I suggested that you put a flag up and the flyer has within 15-second period to raise his hand and start his routine himself. If he drags out too long, then you blow the horn and make him go. But it's better for a freestyler to get into that rhythm beforehand so he can do his best performance versus just saying, you have to go now.
Yeah.
No other freestyle venue makes you go right now. Races do, but freestylers, it's when you're ready, you go. So.
I feel like that could be adjusted. I agree. I personally think having a clock out there would be extremely helpful for a lot of us. It's something that we can at least kind of be able to gaze at periodically, because I mean, I even found myself you know, shaving seconds off because I didn't know that the horn went, you know what I mean? Maybe I should have. What's that?
I was wondering what you were doing. I'm like, he's got time left. Is he that confident?
Yeah, and
I made him an error even driving Andrew on that one as well. I thought I saw the red flag being held in the hand and the sun glimmered on it, and I thought that was a red flag, so I took him down and he's still at 15 seconds. So I think that's a great idea to have a big timer that you can see, you know what I mean? And the flyer is the responsible individual there to, you know, to watch it.
I think we'll see some improvements, hopefully with Dubai money and some extra planning over there for this year. I would expect that they would probably look at making it a little more fan-friendly or crowd-friendly, so using a screen not only for you guys to be able to look at, but for the fans that are walking by to be able to actually look up and see and know exactly who's on the water right now. I mean, that's just an obvious thing. We should know the name and where they're from and who's out there flying at any given time. If you're at a sporting event, you should, you know, so you can cheer for your, even if you don't know who they are, but they're from your home country, you start cheering. All of a sudden you get engaged, right?
Can we back up for a second?
Yeah.
I'd like to back up about the splitting up the programs, because if you think about it, I think we're all in agreement that the pros, there is, Gretchen said it before, there's a natural break in these athletes where you've got the guys that could actually do all these tricks and then the ones that can't. So that, I think, would be the most important thing, you know, moving forward, is to get these classes. Like you said earlier, too, if you could do it any way you want to do it, how would you want to do it? And it would definitely be having a pro division of your elite athletes separate from that natural breaking down, and have to be able to earn your way into the pro division and not just, you know, get in there.
Yeah. Last thought, maybe just throwing it out there because we're coming up on time here. You know, I'm seeing one of my questions for Frankie is he's talked now publicly with me and I'm sure with others about the fact he is working with X Dubai about a hoverboard race for this year. He does want to see that happen, but he hasn't extended any of the schedule in terms of the time frame. So after he said that we were going to do hoverboard races, he put out it's December 3rd, 4th, and 5th for Dubai, and which is exactly the same time frame as last year, which, as far as I could tell, we got a flyboard competition in from the wire to wire. So how's that going to work? I'll have to learn a little bit more about that. And also, we're seeing, I think, the other devices that could come together to create what the fans want to see, which I believe is a bigger event that has a component of freestyle tricks on, you know, the underfoot boards. but also racing, because you can race on the shred sled, you can race on the hoverboard, you can race jetpacks, you can race jetovators. They're all speed, sort of slalom-y type of machines probably. And I'm seeing now those photos come out of Thailand where X-Jets did their video shoot, and they had this big inflated sort of buoy that they were trying to, use as, I think what they're doing is trying to figure out, do we have a sport here where we can sort of, race around these things? And I assume the hoverboard races, Frankie's description of the hoverboard races was side-by-side slalom races around buoys, and maybe a freestyle trick at the end thrown in for the fans. If we could get all of those things into one event, that might be something that's worth the price of admission kind of thing. Any thoughts on seeing that? I know that's a long way out. We have Dubai next, and it's a flyboard specific event with maybe a hoverboard race. But just thoughts on that and what that might mean for the sport.
I could definitely see a hoverboard race set up like a mogul skiing, where they go around their buoys and they do their tricks in between. Set it up. You could also, as these other devices come, you got your jetpack, your hoverboard. You could have an overall champion too, the guy who did the best in all 3 disciplines. Or there's a lot of things you can do, but it all takes money.
For sure.
And I agree with you, Blaine. I think it's a time thing. Every competition almost that we've gone into, right, including even the North Americans, the other worlds, it always comes down to a time thing. It's as you said, it's the same amount of days, and it didn't work last year for those additional things. Why is it going to work this year, right? It needs to be factored in, and there needs to be at least another half day or something added. And if Jason, as if you said, if we have athletes competing in these multiple categories, then that hoverboard thing's got to be at the end for sure, because nobody's going to risk being hurt when they're there to flyboard, right? So there's a few factors to be considered, and I agree. I think
there's
apparently
there's prize money being allocated specifically for the hoverboard race. So there could be people that are starting to feel like the hoverboard is their strength, and they might be willing to go. But for the most part, you've got wear and tear on equipment. You've got more issues with that. You've got time issues. You've got so many other things. And just remembering the physical space that we were in Dubai, the buoys, could they set up like the whole time and not obstruct the big area that the freestyle flying was in? Would that, can it be down? Can it be down the harbor there? Or, I mean, I just don't know what they're thinking for setup and teardown of those of that race.
I think I think the North American Championship proved to us that we can move much quicker than we did at Dubai. It can be a much more rapid fire pace if you remove instant replay, especially out of it. And I'm not saying that you should. I liked having instant replay, but I think in Dubai, it was kind of a little loosey-goosey, show up at 8, and, maybe by 9:30, 9:40 we're starting. Maybe we start at 10. I don't know. Maybe we decide to have lunch at 10 and we start at 1. It just, so if they get it regimented and they get the schedule very tight, I see where you could have room, certainly for hoverboard, without any issue whatsoever. I like the idea of doing hoverboard because, again, if I have some athletes that I would like to bring to Dubai outside of my 3 that I don't expect would place in the top 8 or 16, maybe not even in the top 32, and you hate to bring them halfway around the world to say, oh, guess what? You're going to get 2.5 minutes, and we're done. So now you get to sit here and watch everybody all day. So I would rather see an amateur division instead of a hoverboard competition, but I think that you could, of my 3 boys, I only have 1 that will compete in the hoverboard. The other 2 just don't, and it's just their choice of discipline, or their choice not to participate in that discipline. And I think that there's a lot of athletes that just don't participate in it. So I don't know that you're going to have, of your 70 athletes, I think maybe 20 will participate in it. At the North American Championship, we had tried to have the hoverboard contest and 4 people signed up. It wasn't even worth having. So I don't know. Obviously, though, you attach prize money to it, you may get people that want to just try to see how fast they can fly on it just for the sake of collecting a check at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to give you a lot of credit, though, too, because, again, in Louisiana, I've never seen a promoter pull off a venue change that quick. That was amazing. And you're right, we did get it done in time, and that was amazing in itself. But I remember thinking right after that we either had too many flyers or we needed to change the format. When you think about it, when you set it up in the beginning, you could eventually do it like a week-long event. But that's not happening right now. So you have to take the best and what's going to be the best for the viewers, best for the promoters, and that's going to be your pros right now, or having expert, changing up. Like I like the idea of that. But again, you have to have leeway in there. You should have blocks of, say, entertainment to entertain the crowd and judging and stuff. And then if we run out of time constraints, then you tell them, sorry, we need the time because we have to finish the event. But it needs to be somehow thinned out, thin the herd a little bit. One of
the thoughts was if judging, or if the number of judges was an option to increase, you could have your judges that are set for the pros, but then also have a second set of judges that could judge the ladies category or the veterans category, so that the pro judges were able to step away from the table and do some of the work you guys needed to do while the competition could actually continue on without kind of break.
I don't think that would be necessary. I like the idea of 5 competent judges. I see eventually in the future a lot of retired pros doing this, but it got easier as the time went on. 2 of us were brand new to the technical side, and thank God for Alex. He was amazing. What also too is I also came up with a legend of acronyms to just, instead of writing tricks down, if the judges would have, you don't know how hard our job was. You guys were doing so many tricks so fast. We're trying to write them down, calculate them, score them. But with the way I have it set up, you could write like a 3-letter acronym along with a height multiplier and then a bonus. So it would be pretty quick to do for a judge for each trick. But yeah, it was crazy.
And I will digress with what Jason said on that. I think that your panel should be different for men's, or pros, women's, and veterans, from the standpoint that I think judge fatigue does definitely take a course. You have judges sitting, especially in Dubai. It's 100 degrees out there. It's hot. They're in the sun 12 hours a day. Things just get slower and slower and slower. For me, I would love the opportunity to judge a competition someday, but I can't judge a pro competition because I train pros on the water. I don't currently have any women or veterans in the fight per se, and so it would be nice to have that opportunity to say, hey, give me an opportunity to judge veterans. There's other people out there that might be great choices, but maybe they have a vested interest in veterans or women, so maybe they would be a great choice for pro or a category that they're not in. And it would also, bring some different lifeblood into these panels other than the same consistent things that we've been seeing that people have been complaining about, that there's just not enough diversity there.
So on that thought, with the time running about as long as we probably want to go on this particular topic with everybody, maybe I'll just say, thanks very much, guys, for helping us out with this episode 1 and this, trying to learn this format. I think it's going to end up being kind of a cool way to, we're just planning on doing once a month. Last Tuesday of every month, we're going to bring some guests on. We're going to chat. We're going to talk about the topics that seem to be on everybody's mind within the industry. And I think it's going to be excellent for archival purposes and for learning. So we're going to edit this up. This is going to live on the Hero YouTube channel. It's going to live on Hero Magazine, on the Hydroflight Show page. And we're going to break it up as best we can into a podcast sort of format. And there's a lot of information obviously given out. I encourage my guests here to help make sure that we clarify any points that they've made in the notes and make sure that we get what you've said, right. And even expand on anything. Yeah, as the viewership grows for the live show in the months to come, I think it's going to be a great format for us to learn from each other. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll let you go do something else for the rest of the night.
Hold on. Rumor on Facebook has it that Callon is sitting on the toilet right now. Truth or not true?
Nobody knows his house.
That must be for my #1 fan.
The Hamburglar.
Yeah.
Any guy that can do 25,000 push-ups a day can sit anywhere the heck he wants.
Hey, all done.
And you know what, Gretchen? That's where he does most of his thinking.
I had to put it out there. Rush is like he's a swagger jacker. I'm just gonna put that out there. anything that I'm on, he has to kind of jump on. He has to make himself like attached to, so he gets a little bit of that feed as well. So don't mind him.
So we should call him Caboose.
Okay, guys, I'm going to hit stop, and we'll chat you again soon.
All right.
Thank you very much, Blaine.
Bye,
Thanks
guys.
very much,
All right, guys.
Bye.